Saya pun tak start lagi. Sebab cakap jam
Sepuluh utama tu aku dah kena vaksin kan? Ni, CME ini. Ambil COVID-19 vaksin trial.
Selamat pagi kepada Pengarah Hospital Raja Perempuan Zainab II, Dato' Dr. Hajah Salasawati binti Haji Ghazali, Timbalan Pengarah Dr. Muhammad Azman bin Yaakob, Dr. Noraini Ibrahim, Penyelara CME HRPZ 2 dan semua warga HRPZ 2. Saya Dr. Hariharan Kumarasamy, Pegawai Perubatan Jabatan Ortopedik HRPZ 2 dan akan mempengerusikan CME anda hari ini. Di pagi yang sedikit mendung hari ini, mari kita mulakan sesi CME dengan serangkap pantun. Ambil tebu di tepi rumah, cabut ubi bersama akar. Sedikit ilmu jika berhikmah, garam selaut menjadi tawar. Mari kita bersama menambah sedikit ilmu di dada hari ini. Tajuk hari ini adalah Clinical Trials Walkthrough and Update on Covid19 Vaccine Trials. Konten ialah memberi pengenalan kepada clinical trial vaksin COVID-19 secara am dan khusus di Malaysia. Bersama kita ada dua presenter dari unit CRC, bahagian KKM dan bahagian korporat. First presenter kita hari ini Dr. Muhammad Nabil bin Abdullah, Pegawai Perubatan Clinical Research Center HRPZ 2. Beliau akan present mengenai update of clinical trials done in Malaysia, specifically in Kelantan. Second presenter kita hari ini Encik Ali Iqbal bin Ghazali Hasni, Associate Regional Manager Clinical Research Malaysia. Beliau akan memberi update to COVID-19 clinical trials in general and also some input regarding the China vaccine trials done in Malaysia. Tanpa melengahkan masa lagi, kita menjemput Dr. Nabil untuk memberi presentation beliau.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh and good morning. Thank you to the chairperson for the introduction. Datuk Pengarah, consultants, specialists and my colleagues. So this is the topic for the today's CME, and there will be two parts of this presentation. And the first part is a general overview about the clinical trials and their updates, particularly in Kelantan, and the second part will be about the updates on the COVID-19 vaccine trials. Okay, so this is the agenda for the first presentation. I will start with the case scenario with a video, and then the overview about the clinical trials and the updates. Okay, the case scenario. So let's say we have this one patient, Madam Y, 56 years old, Malay woman. She has DM, hypertension, CKD stage 4 and anemia with a HB of 8.8. And she comes to the nephrology clinic for a routine follow-up visit. And then at the same time, there is an ongoing study, open label randomized control trial of drug A, which is the IP or the study drug for the treatment of anemia associated with CKD patients not on dialysis. So this is a non-inferiority trial compared to drug B, the standard medication. So they want to compare the study drug with the drug B, which is the standard medication. So, okay. So whenever we found a potential patient that fulfill the eligibility criteria for a certain study, then we will approach the patient and invite them to join the study. So next is a video on how we normally approach a patient to join a study and how we manage any events that occurred during the study.
Makcik Farida, berdasarkan kepada baca edaran dan juga perhatian lain yang kita tengok, kita ada satu obat yang sesuai untuk kita bagi ataupun untuk kita letak pada makcik lah. Untuk pengetahuan makcik, obat ni dia berada dalam fasa ketiga ujian klinikal. Maknanya dia obat dia suntik melalui lapisan bawah kulit tu lah, serupa yang makcik cucuk insulin.
Doktor, cik nak tanya lagi.
Ya.
Ada kesan sampingnya ke tak ni?
Okey. Kesan sampingnya kalau menurut daripada fasa kedua yang saya bagi tahu tadi, yang dia sudah lepas fasa kedua tu, yang dilaporkan dalam fasa kedua tu, dia kata bila pesakit yang menggunakan ubat ni sebanyak 2 hingga 3% pesakit yang guna ubat ni dia rasa tak selesa bahagian dia punya pencernaan dia. Sebenarnya kita bagi kebebasan kepada pesakit untuk buat pilihan sama ada setuju ataupun tak setuju. Dan kalau makcik tidak setuju pun tak ada masalah. Rawatan masih lagi makcik boleh mari klinik kita macam biasa. Okay, makcik ada soalan-soalan lain lagi nak tanya pasal ujian klinikal ni sebelum daripada kita start ubat ni makcik, daripada kita tanda tangan borel dia. Okey, kalau macam tu nanti kita akan sediakan borel kepada makcik lah untuk makcik tanda tangan sebagai tanda persetujuan makcik untuk terlibat dalam ujian klinikal ni. Kita ada 2 salinan, satu salinan yang kita akan bagi kepada makcik dan satu salinan ni untuk simpanan kita sini lah. Jadi untuk borel ni makcik tulis nama makcik sini dengan IC makcik, tanda tangan dengan tarikh.
Assalamualaikum Makcik. Saya Dr. Yusril lah. Doktor yang terlibat dalam penyelidikan ni jugalah. Okey. Jadi kalau ikutkan hari ni rawatan susulan rawatan ketiga adalah jumpa dengan kita sini lah. Setakat ni ada masalah ke apa ke? Ke belakang? Jadi kan aku belakang? Jadi bekok dah. Okey, tak apa. Saya nak periksa sikit alat belakang boleh? Saya periksa tadi tu. Saya rasa ada kemungkinan ada cekumen dekat belakang lah. Jadi nampak dia punya bekok tu boleh kira juga lah besar. Dari segi saiz dia. Lepas tu nampak merah. Kalau nyamuk pun macam panas-panas sikit, kemungkinan ada nanuk lah dari tu lah dekat belakang tu. Jadi saya rasa untuk hari ni saya kena rujuk kepada bahagian pembedahan lah.
Assalamualaikum Makcik. Saya Siti Farmasis lah. Jadi saat ni Makcik jumpa doktor. Doktor terkaitan tak pasal letak berapa sikit. Jadi mengikut keputusan Makcik hari ni, jadi kita akan sambung dos ubat lah. Jadi kami dos macam visit kami sebelum ni, nanti masakan cikgu lah. Okay.
Assalamualaikum.
Saya tak salah lah.
Kan, dia pakai jaga beli ya.
Banyak sikit lah tu.
Saya settle belakang dah bawah ni dengan passion IT pun kita bagi tu. Cuma alih belakang dia tu lah nampak macam ada kebangka lah pula. Itu jadi tu dia jadi pula.
Oh ya ke doktor? Kalau gitu saya rasa kena report AX selalu tu.
Tapi kalau sejadi ada buat apa-apa kena admit ke apa kena report SAE tu doktor nanti.
Kalau gitu saya dokumen dulu AE. Lepas tu kita tengok plan surgical ke mana. Kalau kena admit kita report SAE lah dia.
Boleh juga. Buat gitu dulu.
Okey, baik. Terima kasih.
Sama.
Okay. There are a few important points in this video that I want to highlight. Number one is about the informed consent process ataupun dalam bahasa Melayu kita panggil sebagai persetujuan termaklum. So as the name suggested, the patient need to be well informed about the study or the aspect of the trials before they participate in the study, maybe regarding the placebo, the payment if there any, the duration of the study and the frequency of the visits. And patient need to give his or her consent first, and then only we can proceed to the next steps of the clinical trials. And then the second thing that I want to highlight here is about the monitoring. So in clinical trial, all the study activities and all the participants involved in will be monitored by the ethics committee. So any events that occur to the patients, whether or not related to the investigational product, need to be reported to the ethics committee and to the sponsor. So as what you can see from the video, the investigators and his study team reported the adverse event and serious adverse event to the ethics committee and to the sponsor. So I just want to say here that when a participant involved in a trial, his or her rights or confidentiality are well protected. Okay. So I want to touch a bit regarding the history of the clinical trials in Malaysia. So the story started about 40 years ago in 1982 when IMR they did a research on the blood disorders and STD and myomas on our patients. And moving forward in 1999, the first edition of GCP, Good Clinical Practice. And in 2000, the setup of the CRC. And 2002, the MREC, which is the Medical Research Ethics Committee, was established. And 2003, NIH was formed, NIH as a network for the research institutes. And 2007, the launch of the NMR. So these are a few important events that occur in a clinical trial development in our country. Okay, so there are a few words that are frequently used in a clinical trial. I know some of us already have a lot of experience being involved in a clinical trials for years. But for those who haven't, I think it would be a good idea if we're able to know the meanings of all of these terms, because I will be using them, these terms in this presentation. So I will explain these terms in a chronological order. The first, we start with the clinical trial as what defined by the GCP 4th edition, any investigation in human subjects. Okay, want to discover the effect of the investigational products. Okay, in terms of their clinical or pharmacological or pharmacodynamic and adverse reactions, they want to see the safety and the efficacy of the product. So they want, this is the definition of the clinical trials. So sponsor is where this story is started. Sponsor usually comes from the industry, maybe from the pharmaceutical or medical companies, or maybe funded by a research grant from university or from the government agencies. So in ISR, the sponsor is responsible to monitor the study, and they collect the data from the study. So they first came up with an idea. So let's say they want to see the safety and the efficacy. They want to see, a comparison between the drug A and drug B. So they will develop a protocol. So a protocol is a document that describes everything about the study, the design, the target population, inclusion, exclusion criteria, the ethical issue, everything about the study. And then they will hire a CRO. CRO is a contract research organization. They are companies that offers their services to the sponsor to manage all the study activities on behalf of the sponsor. But the responsibility, the overall responsibility is still under the sponsor. So once they get the study or the protocol or the contract from the sponsor, okay, they will conduct a feasibility study. Feasibility study is like a meeting between the CRO and then the sites, okay. They just like a meeting where they want to meet, where they try to find an agreement between them. Okay, for the site, maybe they want to know about the study, okay, whether or not the study involved a very rare disease, okay, the study design. And then for the CRO, they want to know about the ability or capability of the site to conduct the trial. Okay, in terms of how many patients they have for that particular disease in their site, okay, how many staff they have, what about the facility, and etc. So once selected, let's say site A was selected, they will start the study, but prior to that, they need to get the approval from the MREC. And then once they got the approval, the ethical approval, and then only they can continue the study until finish, and with the monitoring from the MREC. Okay. So these are some of the example of the sponsors. Maybe some of them we already familiar with. Okay, the famous one maybe GSK, Novartis, Novo Nordisk, Pfizer, the trending one because of the COVID. And then for the CRO, the famous one maybe Parexel, Novotech, Josh Clinical. Okay. And these are a few examples of the MREC. As you can see, a lot of the medical committee in Malaysia, and some of them from the university. So the numbers. So in the next few slides, I want to show the latest numbers about the global clinical trials conducted at the moment. So for this purpose, I used clinicaltrials.gov website. This is a registry maintained by US National Institute of Health as required by FDA. Yes, of course, it does have some weaknesses, but overall, this website, they can provide us with a rough idea about the number of the clinical trials conducted all over the world at the moment. So the filter criteria I used was, number one, I said for the study type, I select interventional or the clinical trial. And then for the recruitment status, I select not yet recruiting, enrolling by invitation, active, and not recruiting. So here are the numbers. As we can see, the total number is 70,000. This data was retrieved about 2 days ago on 5th of February. And if we narrow down further, we can see the Southeast Asia, okay, with the total number of 1,531, okay. And if we narrow down further, the Southeast Asia, we can see that Malaysia ranked number 3 with number of 343. Number 1, of course, Singapore, 645, followed by Thailand with 525. Okay. And from the clinicaltrials.gov website as well, I got this data. We narrow down further in our country, Malaysia. We can see out of 343, 11 of the trial was conducted in Kelantan. Of course, number 1 is in Kuala Lumpur, 230, Pulau Pinang, 14, and Selangor, 13. So, okay, what about the therapeutic area? I just want to show the trend of the therapeutic area for the past few years in our country. Okay. Let us start with 2017, the ISR, Industry Sponsored Research Statistics, according to the therapeutic area in Malaysia. As we can see, the cardiology, oncology, and gastro was on the top 3 of the number of the clinical trials in 2017. Okay, note that cardiology and oncology among the top two of the list. Okay, moving forward to the 2018, still cardiology and oncology on the top three of the list, followed by infectious disease. And then 2019, as we can see, still cardiology and oncology on the top three, followed by hematology. So, yeah, this is possible because this is possible. You know, the cardiology and the oncology on the top of the list for the past 3 consecutive years. Maybe because of the cancer and cardiovascular disease are the major cause of mortality and morbidity in Malaysia. So the high incidence of this non-communicable disease provides a large patient pool for the clinical trials in this therapeutic area that attracts the sponsor to come in. Okay, so let us focus about the trend in our site, HRPZ. Okay, for the next few slides, I will focus on the feasibility study. So that's why I explained at the very beginning of this presentation about the feasibility study, so that you can get a rough idea about feasibility study. So I will use focus on the feasibility study as the main indicator to see the clinical trials activity in our site, in our hospital. So the data will be in the period from 2018 to 2020. So I got this data from the CRM. They did a very good job in tracking all the feasibility studies conducted at our center for the past few years. And then without us denying, there were some missing data. One of the reasons is because sometimes the sponsors, the CRO, they directly approach the principal investigator without using the CRM or CRC service at the facilitator. So macam kita terputus maklumat di situ sebab dia direct kepada principal investigator. So let us start with 2018 ISR feasibility in HRPZ. As we can see, gastro on the top of the list with 21 of the feasibility studies conducted, followed by hematology and pediatrics and the other departments and the other therapeutic areas. This was in 2018, and moving forward in 2019, the top ISR feasibility studies by respiratory, and then followed by gastro and cardiology. Okay, and then in 2020, again hematology on the top of the list, followed by ID and nephrology. So as we can see here, the number of feasibility study shows quite significant increase in the number received by ID team from 2019 ID team 4 and 2020 increased to 10, maybe because of the increment of the COVID-19 related trials. So if we sum up all the numbers, we can see 2018 we got the highest number, about 119 of the feasibility studies conducted, followed by 70 in 2019 and 2020 and 61 in 2020. So as we can see here, the number of the feasibility study conducted in 2020, it didn't show any significant decrease in the number of the feasibility study, despite of 2020 the COVID-19 pandemic issue, MCO, PKPB, PKPPBB, dah semua itulah PKPP. Okay, so okay, when we further divide the feasibility studies according to the therapeutic area, we can see in 2018 the top number of the feasibility study was in gastro with the total of 21, followed by hemato and peds. For the 2019 by respi, gastro and cardio, and 2020 hemato, ID and nephro. So if we see from this graph, we cannot see any specific trend. Hemato, for example, was among the top 3 in 2018 and 2020, but it was not listed in the 2019. The same thing goes to the gastro. It was listed among the top 3 for the 2 consecutive years in 2018 and 2019, but was not listed in 2020. So there is no specific trend in the feasibility study conducted by therapeutic area for the past 3 years. So this is the MREC approval graph in HRPZ according to the years. Okay, we can show 2016, the total number was 16, the highest. Okay, and then a slightly decrease in 2017, but increase in 2018, followed by 9 in 2019 and 2029. So again, as we can see here, the number of MREC approval in 2020, the number was not affected by the MCO or by the PKP or by the COVID-19 issue. Okay. So let us do some calculation here with all the number of the feasibility studies conducted and the number of MREC approval. Maybe we can try to do some simple calculation. Okay, the feasibility study, if we average them from 2018 to 2020, we sum up all the numbers. Okay, 119 in 2018, 70 in 2019 and 2020 with the number of 61. We divide by 3, we got 83. Okay, so MREC approval, okay, the decision whether or not our site selected as one of the clinical trial site from 2018 to 2020, okay, 12 plus 9 and plus 9 we divide by 3, so we got about 10. So maybe we can say that out of average 80 feasibility studies coming to our site, they will be average about 10 of them, our site will be selected. So it is about 12% chances. Again, I want to emphasize here that this is the only rough estimation, and of course, if we want to have accurate number, we need to cross-check the other resources available. Okay. So there was an analysis done by the CRM staff regarding the reasons why do investigators reject clinical research. This article was published in Journal for Clinical Studies September last year. Okay. And this study, the methodology used, they extract the data from January 2019 till December 2019. So total 348 from this data. They found that, okay, the reason, the most commonly used reason is insufficient patient pool, okay, followed by other reasons. Okay, referred to another potential investigator, insufficient time due to clinical work, conducting competing trials, protocol related and not interested in clinical trials, lack of resources and the other reasons. Okay. Okay, this is the current numbers for the ISR feasibility in 2021. Okay, I got this data about last week or 2 weeks ago, so maybe there is changes in the numbers at the moment with the hematology and neuromedicine to feasibility studies, nephro, respi, and PH1 feasibility studies. Okay, so about the sponsors and the CRO, I just want to show the trend in Malaysia and in HRPZ. So in Malaysia, the top 5 sponsors with the most ISR in 2018, the Novartis, the top of the list, and in 2019, still Novartis among the top of the sponsor. And the top 5 CRO, okay, in 2018, Infokinetics Cerebral Heart, and in 2019, IQVIA was on the top of the list. Okay, top 5 CRO in Malaysia. This is the only data that I can get from regarding the CRO and sponsor, because there are a lot of incomplete data due to multiple reasons. So as we can see, Novotech was the top of the list for the CRO in 2020. So I just want to share some of the achievements so far. Okay, in 2019, 2016, HRPZ was among the top 10 of the site with most ISR trials. Also in 2018, we are among the active site for the ISR. And in 2019, HRPZ ranked number 9 in the most site with the ISR in Malaysia. And HRPZ also recognized as one of the global first recruiter for one of the study conducted last year. Okay, so the conclusion. So with all these numbers, what do actually we want to achieve? So maybe these are the answers. Okay, some of the trials that HRPZ involved as one of the site. The study medication already approved by the FDA, and of course, I think thousands or millions of people will get benefit from it. And then if the study result was still pending, at least we are a step closer to the truth, or to find a better treatment option for the patient. Okay, and then at the end of the day, all the trial, all the effort in the clinical trials is for the development of the medical knowledge and for the sake of humankind. Okay, I think these slides end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you to Dr. Muhammad Nabil. Thank you for the presentation. So we'll allocate a little bit of time, 5 minutes for Q&A session. Is there any questions from the floor? Any burning questions to Dr. Nabil? So far, no question, yeah? So, okay, we have another presenter. So maybe after that, if anyone has any questions, we can ask also later. So now I'll welcome Encik Ali Iqbal bin Ghazali Hasni, Associate Regional Manager, Clinical Research Malaysia. So he'll talk about current updates to COVID-19 clinical trials in general, and also some input regarding China vaccine trial done in Malaysia recently. So please welcome.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. Thank you for spending your precious time listening to our presentation. I'm Ali Iqbal, Associate Regional Manager, presenting about the updates on COVID-19 vaccine trials. Just to put a disclaimer here, this is not like official CRM slides. All are extracted from verified sources and some input from our HOD himself, Dr. Hosner. So just a background, I'm also a coordinator here previously, but then I was promoted, and then now I'm managing all 16 coordinators for ISR in East Coast, consisting of HTA, HSNZ, and HRPZ. So just a bit of history about CRM. We are, in summary, we are owned by Ministry of Health, and we are already accredited by ISO starting from 2019. Basically, our board of directors consisted of Menteri Kesihatan himself, DG, Vice DG, from pharma, universities, and also from university and pharma, okay, and private hospitals. So in up to date, 1st November 2020, we have 131 coordinators ready and servicing all the specialists in hospitals. So just a bit walk through about the services. We supply qualified study coordinators to assist our specialists in conducting all the ISRs presented by Dr. Nabil just now. we assisted investigators in reviewing the contracts from sponsors. So simultaneously, we protected the rights of the investigators and hospitals in Malaysia based on our regulatory and laws. We handled budget negotiations for them. We provide consultations, and we also tackle issues at site level, example, recruitment issues. So back to our content. So I will cover 5 topics here, like more towards introduction, clinical trials, deployment in Malaysia, and misinformation, and finally conclusion. So as introduction about COVID-19 vaccines, we will just narrow down to the only famous vaccines, as we can say, the Pfizer vaccine, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Sinovac vaccine. These are all vaccines planned to be purchased by Malaysia, but now Malaysia is planning to go forward for Pfizer vaccines and AstraZeneca studies first, AstraZeneca vaccine first, because this has been approved by our regulatory body, NPRA. As you can see here, there are a lot of vaccines currently being developed worldwide. So if they wanted to be used in Malaysia, they have to go through our regulatory body first, NPRA. So NPRA will review the published journals of the vaccines, the results, the statistics, in order to give approval so that it's suitable and safe to be used for our population. So just brief info about the Pfizer vaccines is mRNA vaccines, the new technology developed for vaccines. As you were aware, the common vaccines usually we develop is based on inactivated vaccines or live attenuated vaccines. So this is a new technology developed by Pfizer based on, because with this technology, it doesn't need to be using a live vaccine, live virus. They will be engineered in the lab itself. So this one boosted the production of the vaccine itself and more safer to the population. Okay, I'll be touching up on the details later about the efficacy process and which countries approved. So clinical trials, general information. So there are 3 different types of vaccine I'll be covering. One is genetic vaccines, for example, the mRNA. So the types of mRNA vaccines are like Pfizer vaccines, or the other name is Comirnaty, or there's a protocol, scientific name for it, BNT162b2. So the efficacy was 95% based on the published journal in New England Journal of Medicine. So this vaccine will be in 2 doses, 3 weeks apart, intramuscular, and the storage condition is minus 70 degrees. But when it was injected, it will be cooled down to the room temperature first before administering to the citizens. So as you can see in the approved for use in emergency use, our Malaysia is listed among the countries. Okay, so just a bit of background for the study. There are 40,000 subjects was enrolled for this study to test on the phase 3 studies of Pfizer vaccines, and consisted of 152 sites. So based on this, they concluded that there's a 95% protection against COVID-19 in only age 16 and above. I think currently now they are testing for 12 years and above, the new population group. So you can see here the graph is stating about the local events or the side effects, as netizens like to portray it. But in clinical trials, we define them as local events or adverse reaction. So as you can see here, these are normal vaccine reaction: fever, fatigue, pain, and injection site. Okay, so the soft copies will be provide to you later for your self-reading. And how they come up with the 95% is based on the cases of COVID-19 occurrence. So what they can conclude from here is like there was around 10 cases of severe COVID-19 where the first doses, after the first doses, 9 occurred in placebo and 1 in the subject receiving the Pfizer vaccine itself. And this is total based on the 40,000 patient they tested on. So that's how they come up with the 95% effectivity lah. Okay, so Moderna vaccine, this is just a brief information lah, because we will not be, Malaysia is not currently planned on purchasing Moderna yet, but Moderna have a 94.1% efficacy. And extra information is Moderna shows that they can actually, outside of the 94%, the one who are actually infected by COVID-19 is only level 1 and level 2 COVID infection. So this greatly improved the countries how they will handle COVID, because as you know, ICUs are limited in every country, right? So if based on vaccinated population, even the one infected also just will only be affected by level 1 and level 2 COVID infection. This can greatly reduce the workload at the hospitals lah. Okay, so just a walkthrough on how the mRNA vaccine works. mRNA vaccines, mRNA is the one actually developed in the lab, where the mRNA will be injected intramuscularly to the patient, and these mRNAs will go to our immune cells, where the spike protein of the virus will be developed there. Okay, so this spike protein will, in layman's will prepare us early before the actual COVID-19 virus itself penetrate our bodies. So in that case, our bodies are already prepared with the antibodies before the COVID-19 enters our bodies. So that is just a walkthrough of it. So viral vectors, another type of vaccine is viral vector vaccines. This is, for example, like AstraZeneca vaccines. So the efficacy rate was 82.4%. Also 2 doses intramuscularly. But this one, the storage type is refrigerator. Okay, so it's doesn't require -70. So this is why one of the deployment plan in Malaysia, they plan to purchase different type of vaccine, because of one of the issue is the storage condition, because -70 degrees Celsius is very limited. So they want to deploy all the vaccine as soon as immediate as possible, which is why they will purchase different types of vaccine, which can cover most rural areas and areas that doesn't have any storage facility equipped. Okay, so just a journal, the published journal listed here for the AstraZeneca vaccines. So based on that, there were 20,000 participants enrolled for the studies, and overall efficacy was 70%. So just a general information, WHO set a minimum efficacy is 50%. So any vaccines developed that has efficacy above 50% is approved by WHO punya you can say criteria lah. Okay. And Sputnik V, Sputnik 5, so 91.6%. Recently published journal dated 2 February 2021, so also have 91.6%. And the third type of vaccine is inactivated or attenuated vaccines. So this one is, as you are aware, is the Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccine from China. So these two China vaccines currently doesn't have any published journal yet. So which is why our regulatory body MPRA is still not yet decided on we will proceed with the purchase or not. So we will wait for the published journals first. And the third, here I will touch about the current studies, the COVID-19 vaccine China studies, which is currently recruiting patients in Malaysia. This is developed by Institute of Medical Biology at the Chinese Academy of Medical Science. So this one, the participating countries are Brazil and Malaysia. These are Keratan Akbar, and these are the posters that you can see circulating in the social media. So they are just to update you, they already closed the recruitment. So they only need 3,000 participants, and the responses they receive are very good, so that they have to close early the recruitment. Just a bit of information about the trials. The title itself, the randomized double-blinded, the type of vaccine is inactivated, live vaccine. Sponsors are Chinese. Approval, just approved last December, and recruitment target 2,000, and they expected the study to complete in July 2022 lah. This completion rate is based on the how many visits the patient have to sit for the studies lah. But the vaccine itself, they just inject them at the beginning of the studies only. So why the study completion date is until next year? Because they have to monitor the safety and all the adverse reaction. Okay, the sites involved are listed above, in the slides there. 9 sites, where Sungai Buloh is the coordinating center under Dr. Yasmin. Basically, they have 2 groups there, efficacy group and immunogenicity group. And just a bit touching on the eligibility criteria. So as you can see, like if vaccine studies, they give a stricter criteria for in order to be eligible to be a patient for the study. So normally patient cannot be, they must practice contraception, because this will greatly give variables to the data later collected by the sponsors. And they cannot be receiving any other vaccines within 1 month prior to the first dose of the Covid-19 vaccine. And they cannot be donating blood 3 months prior to the receiving of the vaccine. So as you can see here, the criteria is a bit strict, because they are collecting data, because based on this data, they will publish the data in the peer review journals. Okay, but the Pfizer vaccine itself, as so far stated, there's no, the only contraindication is sensitivity allergic reaction. So people with history of allergic reaction is not really encouraged to take the vaccine But all this will be assessed by the doctors and qualified personnel before you are receiving the vaccine itself. Okay, so number 3 is about the deployment plan of COVID vaccine in Malaysia. So as you can see here, the banner here, we are targeting 80% population, 25 million people, where there are 4 phases actually. So first phases we targeted the frontliners, so around 500,000. So I think they split between clinical and non-clinical personnel. While phase 2 will target the high morbidity population, like elderly, people with diabetic, heart condition or kidney condition. And phase 3 will finally target the main population. So this is extracted from the plan, in detail. So after the 3rd phase, there will still be an ongoing vaccination program, where it depends on there's a new clusters after the 3rd phase. So any new clusters, the government will deploy the vaccine to mitigate the spreading of the virus Okay, so this is just the numbers it's actually 80%. So the latest one is 80%. Based on the e-census, currently our population is 22 million, so 80% will cover mostly around 24 million. Okay, just some misinformation about the vaccines. So the most famous question is how the vaccine was developed so fast. Usually any kind of new drugs will need 10 to 15 years. So as you can see from the timeline here, how they actually squeeze up until within a year they can develop the vaccine is based on these 4 main criteria. So firstly, COVID vaccine, globally they already encountered a similar coronavirus already, like SARS or MERS, where basically they have a target cheat sheet for the vaccine. They know like how the virus common shape is, the spikes protein. So based on that, and then China also released the genome for the COVID-19 early in or mid-January 2020, where that is how Moderna made their candidate vaccine ready by mid-March 2020. So they have early start here, and based on history. Second is there's a lot of vaccine candidates at the same time. Currently, we have nearly 200 candidate vaccines, while the approved one is, I think, amounted to 10. So if one candidate falls out, there's one already catching up behind them. They will, because as you can compare it to normal studies, like for example, new HIV drug, there's only one particular company is developing the HIV vaccine, for example, and there's no other companies taking their footsteps lah. That's why once their vaccine have some issues, then they have to halt the program, reassess back the data. Then these are all contributed to the delays of the vaccine development, the drug development. Okay. Third is a newer technology was being used, the mRNA vaccines. So with mRNA vaccines, they don't need to cultivate the virus in order to using a attenuated or inactivated virus. And then this kind of lab synthesized mRNAs will be very efficient in encountering future mutations. Okay. Number 4 is unprecedented financial support lah. So Pfizer vaccine and Moderna and AstraZeneca, they receive a boost from US government lah during Donald Trump's punya era. They got injected 1 billion plus. So usually vaccine companies they tend to not produce in a big amount because they want to play safe. But when government is supporting them financially with a big amount of money, so they, without waiting for the approval itself, they already boosted the production of the vaccine itself. This is why you can see the deployment of vaccine can even covers other countries in the globally, not just US, because they already have the vaccine prepared after the boost. Other misinformation is as you read through the social media lah, like sudden death of a nurse after taking the Pfizer vaccine. So these are all, when we follow up, we noted that once they did the autopsy, there's no relation to the vaccine. And there's one nurse in Tennessee fainted after receiving the vaccine, but social media claimed that she died. So if you just Google it and find a reliable sources, actually the nurse never died. She just fainted because she had a history of fainting after receiving any kind of pain. So that's one more misinformation covered. Number 3 is a nurse died in Alabama, where when we found out there has been no death at all for all Pfizer vaccinees in Alabama. There's 0 death, so they don't know how the existence of this nurse, because there's no such nurse in Alabama receiving this Pfizer vaccine. Number 5 is the elderly people died in Norway. So 23 elderly people, actually not 23 died, but only 13. 23 is actually infected by COVID. 13 has died. So 13 autopsy. This actually 13 people are age 70 above. I think there's even 90 above years. So all this frail group, once they even receive like a common side effects like fever, or as I presented earlier, those normal side effects will become very severe in the frail population lah. So as stated here, it's actually a mild vaccine side effects, but due to the frail population, that's why they lead to the death lah. Okay, conclusion. COVID-19, there's 3 types of group currently, 4 types. So mRNA, viral vector, viral protein vaccine, and inactivated virus. The 2 mRNA vaccine, Pfizer and Moderna, has been widely used, show great efficacy, and they have already published their findings in the peer review journals like Lancet or England, and other types of vaccines such as viral vectors, AstraZeneca and Sputnik also showing good efficacy in their phase 3 studies. There will be more ongoing studies needed to be done, and for example, like Sinopharm and Sinovac China vaccine, because our regulatory body is still waiting for their safety and efficacy. I mean, the published journal. Malaysia has set on its vaccine development plan targeting 70 to 80% population. So we will start with Pfizer vaccine first and followed by AstraZeneca vaccines and others on the way. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your attention. I think there's a question. The main target population for Pfizer vaccine. So from Dr. Habibah, is it? Dr. Habibah Ahmad Said. So main target population is here lah, based on the Malaysia deployment plan. First, they targeted the frontliners, while patients with morbidity will be targeted on the second phase. As you can see here, 13 doses are allocated for them. These are all elderlies, OKUs, even OKUs are disabled. Okay. Is there any more question? Oh, you can address the question to Dr. Nabil also, not just.
Mentioned that you cannot receive other type of vaccine 1 month prior to this COVID vaccine.
For that study.
For all type of vaccine, yang 1 month before you cannot receive.
We don't have the details, but most probably yes, because they don't want the data to be, there's a variables in the data.
1 month or 2 weeks, because I attend Taklimat COVID last Thursday. It was mentioned 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Before COVID vaccine, so is it 2 weeks or 1 month?
This one was extracted from the clinicaltrial.gov. So, because I only have that reference, because if I want to have a more detailed eligibility criteria, is a confidential information actually. Need to go to the hospital, ask them to.
What KKM told us last Thursday is 2 weeks.
But I put a link here.
And for blood donation, some more, right? Mentioned just now 3 months, right? Blood donation. Also 2 weeks.
2 weeks as well. Okay. That way we have to check the protocol itself. So protocol is very intellectual property of the sponsor. Sometimes they don't release to public information lah. So all this public information is very limited lah. Maybe it's based on the global punya design, not Malaysia punya design. Okay. But this is just to highlight lah, macam if studies, they have a stricter punya criteria. Like for example, Pfizer vaccine, they already have a well fixed criteria lah. Siapa yang boleh terima, siapa yang tak boleh terima. Like the one highly debate is the pregnancy and lactating mothers lah. Pregnancy, so far, it's not encouraged, but then the safety, the infection of COVID is, the severity of the infection is outweighed the side effect of the vaccine itself. So it depends on the doctor assessing the pregnant mothers lah. Are they eligible or not?
What about cancer patient?
Cancer patient, so far they,
tengok pada dia punya manager.
I listen from immunocompromised lah. So based on what Dr. Musa, there's a discussion with Dr. Musa and Prof. Hadiba with Dr. Ong from Onco.
Iqbal.
Yes, Dr. Asnan.
Can I just add here because there's just to add of the question of the deployment of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Probably what is addressed here in the initial phase 3 study in the Pfizer-BioNTech, the subject are healthy individuals. They are not high-risk asthmatic, high-risk patients. These are studies on healthy individuals. Is somewhat what we are doing is healthy volunteers. So it's vaccine versus placebo, and they look at the incidence of COVID-19, whereby if Iqbal has shown incidence of COVID-19 only 8 in the vaccine compared to 162 in the placebo arm. And again, what is asked here in the deployment in high-risk individual, the first Pfizer-BioNTech will be given to frontliners. So probably 2.4 million doses of vaccine will be received by all us frontliners. So second deployment probably AstraZeneca on high-risk individuals. About the asthmatic, because about what asthmatic is contraindicated. What I know, asthmatic is not an absolute contraindication, but those who has history of hypersensitivity to allergy, atopic asthma must be if you decide within the clinician. If you decide to give, then probably need to be carefully give with a test dose, but it's not an absolute contraindication. Maybe you need to observe within 30 minutes, but it's not an absolute contraindication in terms of that. But the targeted of second deployment is all high risk individual with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and elderly. That's a target deployment. As data so far, large study trials are on healthy individuals. Don't have data on incident. In terms of mortality, to date, there's no mortality yet in large clinical trial, including the Pfizer-BioNTech trials involving 40,000 subjects. No death so far in the mortality in the reported in the journals.
Thank you, Dr. Dasno. May I know if that answers the question?
Just because staff asked me, a few staff asked me for stable cancer patient.
Stable cancer patient with low dose steroids like that.
They say stable lah. Of course, they're on chemo to cannot receive the immuno.
I think that's only the question on the.
Okay. So that's the question from about the is cancer population cancer patient suitable to receive the vaccine, or maybe stable patient.
What I know is the cancer patient is not in the protocol in the target population risk, but then it's not an absolute contraindication. Probably you have to go case by case basis based on physicians and the experts' decision. If you need the vaccine, probably need to discuss with the ID physicians, what's the risk versus benefit for this patient. But we don't have data on cancer patient. It's not an absolute contraindication.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Iqbal. So I think it was a very informative presentation today. So just to quote back Dr. Iqbal's presentation, so just some take back home message which I got from the presentation personally is regarding the vaccine's efficacy, keberkesanan vaksin itu sendiri, which they say it's more than 70%. So and WHO efficacy target only 50%. So that I think dia memberi gambaran yang cukup jelas tentang keberkesanan vaksin tersebut. And then soalan burning question which Dr. Iqbal already answer, why this vaccine was developed so fast. So dia ada banyak sebab dia, antara sebab ialah developer vaksin yang banyak. Kita dah ada informasi mengenai coronavirus yang awal, and teknologi-teknologi yang baru, dan also pelabur yang banyak compare dengan vaksin-vaksin lain. So kerja 10 hingga 15 tahun kita dapat manfaatkan dalam 1 tahun. So that is very great. And also tentang informasi di media sosial. So yang tu memang kena disoal selidik betul dulu sebelum kita percaya semua informasi kita dapat di social media. That's my take home back message. And then also regarding the recent question about the question about safety of the vaccine for those patients with contraindications, or either it's absolute or relative contraindication. I think the most important part, please correct me if I'm wrong, this shows why kita kena dapatkan sasaran 80% vaccination for our population, so that we can develop herd immunity. That is the most important part. So at least those who cannot take the vaccine, who have a lot of question in themselves because they have problem in themselves, so we can help them. So I think that is the information I got today, and some important things that we learned today. So thank you again to Dr. Nabil and Dr. Encik Iqbal to give this presentation. I hope that ada dah soalan daripada floor. Any questions? Ada lagi soalan? So I think masa pun dah 9:15, kita kena sambung kerja kita. Thank you again to everyone for joining us for the CME. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Nabil. Sorry Iqbal. Thank you.
Slide in the chat box.
Masih online lagi kan? Kita online. Thank you. Kita online lagi kan? Ada. Lupa nak bagi tahu Dr. Iqbal share slide.
Yeah.
Yang dapat.
Not everyone pay attention to the chat box.
Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.